I found some cool kind of graveyard place near the train tracks when I was out on a morning run. So I run after these girls and it's like, excuse me, do you speak English? I think I found the perfect 90mm Leica M-mount lens, and it sits between the 90mm Summicron Pre-ASPH and the 90mm 2.8 Voigtlander APO. Today we're talking about the Leica APO Summicron M 90mm f2 Leica M-mount lens. Hopefully this video will have something for everyone. We're going to start off with lots of sample photos. We'll then quickly cover the lens spec. I'll then do a side-by-side comparison test against one of my favourite portrait lenses, and then stay with me until the end. I'll do a full roundup of whether or not this really is the best 90mm for Leica cameras. Hello, welcome, Matt here from MrLeica.com. If you know anything about 90mm lenses, they are fantastic for portraits. As a model photographer, I was keen to find a model while I was out in Poland with Peter Coulson to test this lens to see what it can do. Annoyingly, the model then cancelled, so I had to make a new plan. And so the new plan was to do street photography. To add to the challenge, I'd already done several lens tests. The previous day I tested the 21 2.8 Leica Elmerit, and so today we're going back to the same place to see what I can do with a 90mm lens. The hotel we were staying in was around 30 minutes walk from the centre of Krakow, so as I walked into town I was taking photos of anything that caught my eye. The first thing I loved was the compression of the 90mm lens, and walking along the tram lines I was taking plenty of tram pictures. Here's me trying to do some portrait testing using a flyer on a lamppost. This photo is raw to give you an idea of the colours, and then here's the same photo with the Mr. Leica black and white preset applied. I lined myself up for these horses coming so I could fire off a series of shots framed by the restaurants on either side. This is a very sharp lens and it does give nice separation from the background, as you can see here, but at the same time I felt like a bit of a weirdo photographing people with like a semi-telephoto lens from like across the square. Here's me testing the sharpness of the lens up close and the bokeh top left. Great performing lens, and these photos are raw with zero editing. And if you look carefully in this detail, there's a lot going on. Another tram shot to finish in the sunlight. And before we move on, I must say a huge thanks to my awesome patrons. Wake up on day 2, go down for breakfast, and there was a small glimmer of hope. I noticed 2 very pretty ladies, girls, having breakfast in our hotel. And so I was like, oh, I'd really like to ask them if they'd be my model so I can test this lens and do some actual portraits. I was trying to build up confidence to go and ask because there's other people in the room, and then I bottled it and they left to cut a story short. So there's me outside in the hotel car park testing these lenses for you guys, and then next minute the 2 girls check out and they walk past. I kind of look and then I think I need to go and ask them, and then like, no, I can't, I've got all these Leica cameras everywhere. And then I have another look and they're starting to like go around the corner out of sight. And there's one guy a few like tables away from me having a cigarette. So I run over to him and he's like, excuse me, just watch my cameras for 2 seconds. And he's like, are you going after those girls? I'm like, yep. And so I run after these girls and he's like, excuse me, do you speak English? Can I ask how old you are? Are you 18? And they're like, nope. I'm like, ugh. I'm not sure if they just said that because they didn't want to have pictures. I think I said a bit more than that, but basically, would you like pictures? And they said no. So went back. Luckily my Leica cameras are still there. Explained to the guy that I was a YouTuber and he kind of had a bit of a laugh. And so I needed a new plan to try to test this lens a bit more, and I'd found some cool kind of car scrapyard, graveyard place near the train tracks when I was out on a morning run. So I headed there again with the 90mm lens, and this time I was going to try and take more interesting photos than I managed on day 1. So I found this place when I was out on a morning run, and I thought it was all completely deserted. First of all, I was using the 90mm compression to take photos from the lane, like the driveway, into the premises. But then I started hearing like welding and hammering and various noises, as if it was more like an operating workshop. So I was taking photos from the kind of cover of the hedge like some weirdo. And then a car started coming, so I pretended to take a picture of these leaves, like pointing the camera at the floor. And then I realised this is just stupid, so I just walked up to the workshop doorway and kind of said to them in kind of broken English, can I point it at the cars, can I take photos? And the guy just smiled and said, okay. So after that, I just walked around quite happily without any kind of worries. I love this kind of stuff for taking pictures. I normally take these types of photos if I'm using a film camera and I've got no models. Sometimes if I run, I carry a camera with me, and then if I find stuff like this, I take pictures. The 90mm is amazing because you can get those detail shots where you kind of can isolate either the plant in that example or parts of the car, but also you can get both compression and subject separation from foreground and background. So you can see, if you look carefully, the bokeh behind, but if you look really closely from this crop, the detail's amazing even at f2. There's the bokeh again with me focusing on the number plate. All these are shot at f2 on a Leica SL, shot in RAW, and then I just added my Mr. Leica M9 black and white preset. I just tend to like that look at the moment. And yeah, I was so happy in my element running around taking loads of pictures. I think the guy thought I was completely nuts. I like, again, the compression shooting through that window. Look out in a future video because I do bring a model back to this place, and you'll see that in a video to come soon. I'm not normally a car person, but I was more than happy taking pictures of all these random old, like broken, decomposing Land Rovers. I took a photo there of the GoPro just to show how sharp this lens is in the center, and I come closer again to show the sharpness. Again, f2, look at the amazing separation. I was just trying every angle possible to try and get the best possible pictures and kind of whatever interested me, and test the lens at the same time. Or there wasn't the best test because all of these photos are shot at f2. You will see me stop the lens down as we get into the video, but yeah, I just love this separation at f2, and it's more than sharp enough at f2. Love this picture. I might make this the cover photo. And I even saw this little ladybug, or ladybird as we call them in the UK. Great image quality. So what about performance in a test environment? So here's the lens shot at f2 with these lilies I found in someone's garden, 2.8, and at f4. What about corner sharpness? I set up this test rig shot in a hotel car park on a tripod, and then use the corner of the trees to test my corner sharpness. There is a bit of wind, but you can see the photos are pretty much sharp throughout. I wanted to do another bokeh test, so back to the lilies, and again, amazing bokeh, even down to f4 if you're getting close. Okay, what about lens spec? So this lens is 5 elements in 5 groups, 11 aperture blades, and a 55mm filter thread. It weighs in at 500 grams, which is around 25% lighter than the previous pre-aspherical version I own. Maximum aperture of f2 with half-stop aperture clicks. It's got a pretty long focus throw, maybe 180 degrees at a guess, maybe even longer, with a minimum focus distance of 1 meter, and a built-in pull-out telescopic lens hood. The big question in my mind was, how does it compare to the non-APO pre-aspherical 90mm f2 Summicron that I own and rave about all the time? Here you can see the size comparison, APO on the left, pre-aspherical on the right. I wanted to test both lenses in a controlled environment shot on a tripod, so I found this remote tree that I could use with the fence behind to give me some rendering testing and the kind of the bokeh behind that. So I focused on the centre of the tree trunk, and to my amazement, they're actually pretty similar. Make up your own mind from the photos. I'd say the APO is probably half a stop sharper, maybe 1 stop sharper, wide open, but very similar. Next, wanted to do bokeh testing. I was sure the pre-aspherical would be better for bokeh, but again, they're almost identical. I couldn't believe it. So I was like, right, I need to do another test. So I did another bokeh test, this time shooting more up into the trees to get kind of more bokeh balls. And again, make up your own mind, but to my eyes, both lenses are really, really similar. Really surprised. So what is the verdict? Do you need the APO lens, or can you make do with the older pre-aspherical lens? The pre-aspherical is a bigger lens, so it's not ideal for travel for my overseas model shoots. The small lens is much better in that regard. As you can see here up close, my lens has got quite a lot of wear on the aperture blades, but it still seems to perform very similar to the APO from my limited testing. The great news with the pre-aspherical, it is much, much cheaper, from around £500 on eBay. Next, you can get the spherical version for around £900, or the APO for around 1,600-ish on MPB. You need to be a bit careful because both lenses look very, very similar. The way you can tell at a glance is the APO has got writing on the hood. The non-APO has got writing on the front of the lens. So if you're looking on eBay, make sure it's got writing on the hood if you want to get an APO version. This lens is still in production, and you can buy it on B&H for around $5,500. So the question is the 90mm APO the best 90mm lens for Leica cameras? But I think if you're shooting portraits and size and performance is important, this lens is number one. Is it the sharpest Leica 90mm? And I would say no. The Leica SL APO is the sharpest 90mm lens I've ever tested. And if that's important to you, definitely check out the APO SL version. It's got more micro contrast and crazy sharpness from my testing. Is this the best value lens? And I would say again, no. If you don't mind the bigger size, check out the Pre-ASPH, as already mentioned. And if you want something smaller and amazing value, check out the Voigtlander 90 2.8 APO. What if you want the smallest possible 90mm for Leica? Check out the Macro Elmar M. It's not cheap, but it's the smallest because it's collapsible, and also it's got a 0.7 meter close focus distance, making it the closest focusing of the mentioned lenses. Thanks for watching, and to see more on these 90mm lenses, click the videos here.